very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society. And we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret society, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweigh the dangers which are cited to justify it.
Greetings, surveilled Americans. We have gone through computers like tissue paper sequentially being fried as we went after the alphabets. Let's take a look at shadow money this time. The Rockefeller Fund backs the Clinton Foundation and started the Council on Foreign Relations.
In short, they seek total and quiet control of the entire world. And the CFR is their most visible conduit for carrying out that agenda.
They also replaced homeopathic medicine for their Nazi Germany pharmaceutical agenda and backed Trilateral CFR member Kissinger in his run of what can only be expressed as war crimes.
Forces launched a coup in Santiago, killing Allende. Augusto Pinochet would assume power and begin a reign of terror that would last 17 years.
What followed was 16 years of oppression, torture, and death under the fascist regime of Augusto Pinochet, along with the steady flow of resources and profits to multinational corporations. Furthermore, during Nixon's presidency, it was Kissinger who oversaw legal bombing campaigns that slaughtered millions of Indo-Chinese civilians across Vietnam, Cambodia, and Laos. This number doesn't even take into account the countless thousands more that have died in the years since from exposure to the toxic chemical Agent Orange, sprayed all over the landscape in Kissinger's scorched earth policy. According to the UN, tens of thousands more civilians have also died as a result of the unexploded U.S. bombs that still litter the countryside after the war, with just as many left maimed. Ironically, in 1973, Kissinger wasn't just overseeing death and destruction, he was also winning peace prizes. Yes, Kissinger actually won a Nobel Peace Prize for helping bring the Vietnam War to a close. Amazing. But during the end of his time in office, Kissinger and Ford helped Indonesian dictator Suharto invade East Timor with weapons furnished in the U.S. The same man who had facilitated a year-long reign of terror resulting in 1.5 million people dead, according to Amnesty International.
I do think that somewhere down deep, he knows what he was doing. He knows it was against a lot of first principles, which is why so much is masked and hidden, and there's so much distrust. It's a very, very sad way to go through your life. Whatever he did, whatever he accomplished, I'm not sure it's worth it, because he had to live a lot more years. You know, he's been out of power for a long time, 25 years now. In his own way, the reason I don't worry about war crimes or anything else, he's got his own sentence. He's got to live with himself.
Similarly, John D. Rockefeller Senior through the Rockefeller Fund invented the field of eugenics and funded Nazi Germany's use thereof.
John D. Rockefeller Senior contributed a large amount of money to build the Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory in the early 1900s, which housed the Eugenics Records Office from 1910 to 1944. Rockefeller influence also spread overseas to Germany, where the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Psychiatry and the Kaiser Wilhelm Institute for Eugenics, Anthropology, and Human Heredity resided. Much of the money used to run these facilities came directly from Rockefeller. These institutes became centers for Nazi eugenics programs during the reign of Adolf Hitler.
The Rockefeller Fund also backs the Brooking Institution. The Brooking Institution is the #1 think tank in America, made up of Big Pharma, Big Oil, Big Banking, and military industry. The Brooking Institute fights federal legalization of cannabis. They back Zionism, push full-fledged war with Iran for oil rights. The Brookings Institute is the leading force behind convincing Americans of an endless war with Iraq, and they back Hamas. They have put out expert opinions that workers cannot have a living wage or they'll be replaced by robots. And the Brookings Institute's prominent analyst is none other than Richard N. Haas, CFR president.
Okay, so as we discussed last time, you are the president of the Council of Foreign Relations, which secretly controls the world, I believe.
Brookings Institute fostered and surveilled the follow-through of $110 billion weapons deal with Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia giving $25 million, Qatar, all of these countries. You talk about women and women's rights. So these are people that push gays off business, off buildings. These are people that kill women and treat women horribly, and yet you take their money. So I'd like to ask you right now, why don't you give back the money that you've taken from certain countries that treat certain groups of people so horribly? Why don't you give back the money? I think it would be a great gesture.
Money and greed is all Trump and Hillary are about. You still voting in a rigged system. The Brookings Institute are chief in the creation of pay-to-play politics. So of course many of their members constitute the Clinton Foundation, and a CFR vice president of the CFR who gave Iran the Tehran reactor as a premise to engage them militarily. Gary Seymour is also senior fellow at the Brookings Institution.
Through whatever diplomatic traps it wanted to, and then as a last resort destroy the facility with military force.
Consultant to Brookings Institute, friend of George Soros and president of World Bank Jim Yong Kim, has given Ivanka Trump a fund of $1 billion to bribe Donald to pass legislation giving another $150 billion in taxpayer dollars to World Bank, the third world eating machine. So, Jimmy Kim and Christine Lagarde, president of the IMF, can sweep in privatizing resources and taking valuables, leaving already broken countries with paper-backed crap currency, which they call private sector investment infrastructure. But because this Yong Kim asshole is calling his bribe the Ivanka Trump Fund, and Ivanka has a crap Chinese clothing line, the fund increases her brand recognition. So, they are calling the fund the Ivanka Trump Women's Entrepreneurial Fund. As always, check the paste link for the deets and surveil the deep state that dares to surveil you. We will not forgive. We will not forget. Expect us.